wonderful to be here in this beautiful space, Neukirche. There's an elemental quality, I think, that comes through in my music, whether I want or not, it comes through. I always love to connect with natural cycles of the earth, the weather, the rocks, the elements. It's a very kind of tactile, as we say, feeling in my music, and there's texture and colour. Things you might think of as being visual, but I think you can feel them almost in the music. You can almost touch them in the music. So this is why I love to write for percussion, one of the many reasons. Another reason I love to write for percussion is that I love dancing. I love dance music, and a lot of classical music somehow bypasses that whole area of dance music, and that's one thing I think has been my mission all my life as a composer, to bring the kind of attitude of dancing back into classical composition and quite complex music. Another reason I love writing for percussion is that it's, of course, the oldest instrument apart from the voice. So I'm always thinking back, trying to think through time, as it were, because music, I think, exists out of time. Although it takes time, it takes up time. I think in music you can go back and forward in time. You can hear something, go on a journey away from that thing and arrive back at that thing. So it has this quality of non-linear storytelling. I think that's why I love music so much. And the idea that if we can trace back to our roots as humans, what did we do? What was the first percussion instrument? What was the first sound? And I love to explore even further back, and it's sort of relating to kind of archaeological, psychological excavations, let's say, of the human mind and what we're capable of as humans. So the idea that, you know, we are one with the stones, we're one with the stars, we're made of stardust, and within us is all this coding of all the planets, all the orbits of the planets, the distances of things, space and time. So it's the idea, I suppose, that there are codes embedded in stone, and for me, I just think that's a very exciting thought, that inanimate objects, which have been to us, which look like inanimate objects, can be a living thing, and they can contain wisdom, you know, the earth's wisdom, and that some way something that you can maybe try and imagine in music. So that's that side of the piece, I think.
Beautiful. You went really far in space, and still it was on Earth.
That's it. It's keeping the roots in the earth.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Because your setup is quite rich. I mean, you went from the low kicks, but I mean, kick drum is your main loud instrument. But you also went like quite wild,
yes.
Really changed the drum set with the congas and all the stuff.
Yes.
What you previously also used in your pieces.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you also went for quite surprising vibraphone use,
yeah.
and unique set of pentatonic tuned and quarter-tone tuned glockenspiel. Why?
Yeah.
Why is that idea? Where did it come from?
I don't know where that came from. So when you asked me to create the piece, it was in my mind that I knew you enjoyed playing dark ground, and I very much enjoy hearing you play that piece, and I would love to somehow meet your expectations. This was way back. I didn't want to disappoint you, and so I wanted to write something which had a bit of the feeling of dark ground. But I have a problem in doing anything twice. I can't repeat myself. I get so bored. I'm onto a new thing. So it was a struggle for me to do that. But at the same time, I really wanted to. So it was balancing the idea of diving into something new with actually using some of the deep funkiness of dark ground. I can't remember where the whole idea of vibraphone came in, but during the composition process, I suddenly sort of hit upon or kind of dug up, as it were, a musical idea which was a rhythmic pattern, and a way of manipulating harmony, which enabled me to have these kind of chunks of harmony going up and down. And I thought that was kind of a little bit like the Dutch sound, which I've always admired but never really tried to replicate. But I thought, oh, the Dutch sound is suddenly it's coming out, so let's go with the flow, you know. So that's maybe why I called it River Run, because I felt it had this flow to it. But at the same time, this flow, which you'll hear in the winds, is quite rugged. They're going up and down these chords, which are always rooted in piano and often vibraphone and marimba as well. It's this big kind of chorus. It's very colourful, but it's also quite stone-like. It's quite chunky, going up and down. So I guess the vibraphone colours were very important, in contrast to the very end, which is the moment where the congas come in, which is kind of like dark chocolate. I think it's very rich and warm when they just sort of, they kind of come out of the dark, whereas the beginning is very, very colourful. It's like birds with plumage everywhere and just showing off and hopping up and down. So so yeah, I guess I always like the contrasts. I'm looking for extremes always, because I like to create whole worlds within pieces. I like the journey to be epic and rewarding and interesting and full of variety, mostly in my pieces. So yeah, and then I don't know how I came to this. Oh yes, I remember now, yes. Okay, so I had some material sort of, that, as we say, that I'd prepared earlier for piccolo, some sort of woodwind. Again, this is a bird-like thing, melodies, which had a quarter tone. I just was hearing them with this E. I can't remember exactly what it is. It's a flat E, I think very high. And I thought I really want to use that because this gives the whole scope, because I love very low sounds and very high sounds, and I love to sort of, as it were, create that spectrum and then work with the resonances within that as well, but in a very melodic way. So it's like a framework for a drama, the high and the low. And then I realized that for you, nothing is impossible. And you said, well, we can commission a quarter tone xylophone. So that was beautiful. I was very happy about that. Well, I love the sounds, I love the physicality, I love the primal side of percussion. And as I said earlier, the rhythmic aspect is so important to my music because it's not something which has always been there with classical music. So this is why, if I'm working on a piece with percussion, the sound of the instruments is really important. Yeah, so I do have a very vivid ear for sonority, so I'm very good at hearing different types of sounds, and I used to play drum kit, so I know a little bit how to play that, so it feels like a kind of bodily thing. I've played the drums, I'm very picky about how the drums sound. So if I've got the opportunity to work with a percussionist in a piece, then I will always go into the detail because it feels like to me, like that really helps to define everything. If you've got a good percussionist and the sounds are always linked to the other members of the orchestra. I can't speak for other composers, but for me, the percussion is used to define, to really outline things, to connect colours, and as a kind of rooting together of things. So for example, there's a piece called Falling Angel, which I see it as a piece with I think two different basic shades of colour in. One is sort of dark and one is brighter, but both of those colours come out of one instrument, which is at the centre of that piece, which is a steel pan. So in one sense it's very metallic, but in the other sense it's very warm, and it has some sort of slightly chaotic resonances. But I can't describe it more than that, and that's quite an early piece, but it's a good example of how one instrument sort of, from that one instrument, the entire colour of the piece grows out. So yeah, I like the fact that you got the extreme brightness of the metal instruments, and I love the fact that you got like semi-tuned sounds, because I don't often write many quarter tones, but I do love microtonal music. But I don't write for that many ensembles who have specialties in that or specialise in that. But I think there are so many ways to create that sound. You don't have to be writing absolutely exact microtones, at least I don't, to get an interesting result. And I think working with semi-tuned percussion is just brilliant, has been brilliant for me for creating microtonal music, like adding a layer of that on top of notation that looks actually quite straightforward. I'm so lucky to work with such a wide variety of musicians and performers. As you say, I write for small groups, large groups, singers. And what has happened over the years, of course, is that I've come to develop close working relationships with, you know, a handful of really special collaborators, and that's so important for music because it's such a social thing to do, and we learn from each other. But it's so happened for me that there have been drawn into my world quite a few amazing percussionists, or quite a few, a small number, but I just love to work with percussionists, so they're always in my life, and singers, always in my life. So I think, again, these two ancient forms of creating sound, the two basic, they're just very important to me, and so my life is blessed to have incredible percussionists and singers, and then, of course, a wide variety of others, but the collaboration and the musical friendships are so important. So it's been an absolute pleasure and an honour to work with you, Konstantyn.
Thank you, Tansy.